Good evening, dandies. Welcome to Undetermined, the podcast.
All right, here we are.
Here we are. It's January 3rd, 2020.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy
Got a
New Year,
special
guys.
guest here. Yeah. Hi there.
Hello.
Hi. Who we got here? This is Matt.
This is Jon, of course. And tonight we have, do you want to introduce yourself or do you want us to introduce you?
I'll let you guys do it.
All right, Jon, you do the honors.
All right. Tonight we are talking to Phildo, Owen of Skatenigs fame.
And many other.
Many others. Former Revolting Cock. Gosh, Chore Boy. A lot of production credits. Wax Trax Records alum. And I'm sure many other projects I don't even know about because
The
discography
is almost as long as the arrest record.
Yeah, almost.
Coincidentally.
Right. Is the bill about the same on both of those too? I don't know.
I try not to look. That's one piece I try to avoid.
Right.
Yep. We're not looking to trap you for anything right now, so
No.
thanks for joining us.
Statute of limitations is my friend, so we're all
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
That's working on your side. So, like 30 years you've been going at this, right? Somewhere around there?
Entering the 31st year, yes, that's correct.
Wow. That's a long time in the business, man. Congratulations.
Well, thanks.
Does it seem like that long?
It does some days and some days it doesn't.
Yeah.
I wonder where all the time goes sometimes, and then sometimes it seems like it is exactly the way it should have been. I think that's kind of the price that you pay for going at the speed of light.
Yeah.
And then, it's hard to recognize when you slow down, and the ups and downs have been very strong peaks and valleys. And that's just kind of what the track record shows. And I guess that's probably how it feels to me more than anything else.
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had a weird kind of time passing experience tonight. Just before we were doing this, I was sitting down with the family. My wife decided we were going to watch Freaky Friday, like the original one with my kid while we're eating dinner. And I'm watching this movie and realize like it looks ancient.
Right.
And I realized I was like 6 years old when this movie was made.
Yeah.
Like Jodie Foster as a kid. And I'm like, oh my God. How is this? I had that phone, just watching them.
Right.
And I'm thinking like it's just, a million years ago and realized, nope, that was in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. I'm having more of those moments lately, it seems like.
Yeah.
Well, it's also, we're at the time in our lives too. You look back at, Blade Runner took place in 2019.
Right.
Yeah.
So what the expectations were and the way it turned out to me is, art versus reality. And, it's one of those things that the vision for that was so awesome and scary. But I think what happened was even scarier and a lot less awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's something to that. We've also outlived Terminator and Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Right.
I think.
Buck Rogers. Yeah.
Yeah.
All that. That is weird. And it is, I think it's odd that some of those things like in sci-fi are like some of the things that are coming to pass, and it's strictly because a lot of these scientists were sci-fi nerds. Like the first cell phones were invented basically because a bunch of guys got together and said, hey, we want our own Star Trek communicators,
Right.
What can we do to make one of those? And now it's, more common in households, I think, than a refrigerator in a lot of places.
Well, I think it's funny too that the Apple smartwatch is like such a mad device, but when you think about it in terms of Dick Tracy, it was like going to be the futuristic, most cool thing ever.
Yeah.
And now people, if they're not counting their steps, are like, man, this thing bugs the shit out of me.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Or just like it was science fiction to have like a video phone. When we were kids, that was just unimaginable. How cool would that be? And now, like, it's reality, and I'm like, fuck no, I do not want anyone watching me while I'm talking to them. Turn that shit off.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the idea of what Big Brother was going to be was such a, the vision on that was once again scary, but didn't even touch the gravity of how much Big Brother really is in our life now.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And the idea that the government wants to know, hell, nobody wants to know what's going on in our pitiful lives except the people that want to sell us potato chips and shit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had a creepy experience the other, I'll get in the phone or get in the car and I'm going somewhere and it's not work, but the phone knows where I'm going. Hey, this is the quickest route there. How the fuck is this? That creeps me out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the self-driving, self-parking car, which I think is fantastic, but the idea of that too is like just bring the destination to my house, really. Yeah. But I do love the idea of joyriding safely.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of scary. Sometimes you think about what people are going to be doing with it, though. I mean, that's nice, those safety precautions, but man, I worry about a lot of people just getting loaded and getting behind the wheel.
Right.
Well, and if self-driving cars, will they even fucking have windshields?
Right.
What's the point?
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Give me the perfect filtered video inside the cab with, climate control and everything, and just put me in my little tube or implant or whatever.
Right. Make me think.
Oh man, that would terrify me.
Make me think I'm driving through Paris or whatever. Just play a video of that.
And at that point, does your car stop you from wahooing beer?
Right.
And things like that. Is my car not going to allow me to break the law now?
Right. Yeah.
Right. Does the law change?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Maybe you can't sit in the driver's seat if that's what's happening.
Yeah. Or I want to hit that car ahead of me.
Yeah.
And now I'm not allowed to.
Yeah.
Now, the car is my enemy.
Yeah, maybe you have to, maybe it just kidnapped your child or something and you gotta, who knows?
Yeah. I'm not sure. Do you trust the car to drop your kids off at school?
Oh, yeah, man. I don't know.
Ooh.
Yeah, that does get creepy.
At some point we do, though. We do. Like our generation might not go for it, but the next one will be like, yeah, I could do that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, and idea, put it on babysitter mode, and I'm sold.
Right.
You
Yeah, and I hate to be a Luddite about that shit. I don't want to be. I think it's so funny how we kind of pick and choose that. It's because there's so many things that people say are just like, oh, we didn't need this fangled shit when I was a kid. And it's like, talk to all these people. I'm like, man, I don't know anybody who didn't grow up without air conditioning, all this other shit that's not natural, it's
right.
We're not chewing tree bark and living in mud holes. I mean, we take advantage of technology every day and without batting an eye for a lot of it. But yeah, it's just, I think it's about giving over control.
Right.
And I think that's the difference.
Yeah, but we do it in a second. We do it for convenience. And not only will we give it up, we'll do it for convenience and we'll pay for it.
Yeah, that control element is the big part of it. Like you say, control versus convenience. It's weird. It's like I was sitting in an old car the other day, an old Plymouth, that belongs to my neighbor down the street. And it's like when you sit in that thing, it's weird that like cars used to feel like a piece of transportation. They were like an airplane or something. The controls were real dominant and everything else. And now it's like we sit in our newer cars and they're more like a living room. They're more like a place to laze around and you don't really feel like you're in control of a machine. It's, it's like you say, it's bringing the destination to you. And I don't know. Of course, I like old cars, but I think there was something about that made you just feel more. I don't know if you felt more like you were just in better control, or you knew what you were doing. You knew what you had. It's like this is a potentially dangerous thing,
right?
It's a tool. Old cars felt like tools. Not anymore, man.
Right.
You see, it's no wonder so many people are falling asleep at the wheel and everything else these days.
Yeah, but they sure come with a lot of accessories these days, man. It's crazy.
Well, the thing is, if we couldn't complain about it, we wouldn't want it either.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like that's part of it. It's like the syndrome of the person who doesn't vote is the one that gripes about the new candidate the most.
Right.
Usually,
Mhm.
and it's like we like to do the same thing.
Mhm.
I love to live in a world where I can complain and complain freely.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and we evolve, just in our lifetimes. I remember being a teenager and think, why does anybody have to have like electric windows in a car? And now if a car has roll up windows, fuck that.
Yeah.
I don't want that.
Yeah.
I can at least get the ones that roll up automatically. And now,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have auxiliary on the stereo. No
Yeah,
way,
fuck
man.
that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Bare minimum, I got to have that stuff. And there was a time when I was like, nah, I don't have to have that stuff. I'll put in I can buy a stereo and put one in myself. Nope, it needs to come with the car.
Right.
Mhm.
Of course, it's a lot harder to do it now, too.
Oh, yeah, it's a pain in the ass.
And, we just bought a car. Now, every car has to have like a backup camera on it. Why? I don't trust that, man. That bugs me.
Yeah, my wife never watches it. She doesn't look at it, doesn't like to.
I do think those cameras are really cool if you put them to use on other things.
You got any examples?
Driving around the block in reverse, taping your neighbors doing yard work, or whatever mischief they're up to.
Can you record the backup camera? I need to.
I don't know. I'm sure you
could.
can. There has to be a splitter, an adapter. Where's Radio Shack now? It's like
right.
The king of adapters. I'm like,
you could record it with your phone,
or just to like back up at pedestrians and record them, put it on YouTube. That's a YouTube channel right there.
Yeah, people
watch them move.
Yeah, people watch dumber shit. That's for sure. Yeah, we've talked about that a lot, especially with our kids and the stuff that they check out all the time. 32-year-old people acting like 12-year-olds unboxing toys. Like they're so excited about them.
Right.
25 million hits later. It's like, wow. I never fathomed that was going to be entertainment one day. Just watching people open shit.
Yeah.
The 30-year-old video game guru that leads nations of underage kids.
Right.
Every morning before they go to school. I love that 6 a.m. up and at 'em. My kid wakes up to get on his video game, to chat with the rest of the world and kill some people before he goes off to school.
Right.
And he's got to listen to his YouTube video game guru, not just because of how to play the game, because he's already learned all that shit. He just likes learning the new cuss words.
Yeah. God, I was about to, I don't know. Yeah, my kid's usually on my computer with my cans on, so I can't hear. I can see what she's watching, but, YouTube, you can't hear what they're saying, but I know she's heard worse from dad.
But it's crazy. Like people, to me, it seems really bizarre that someone will get on a computer and sign up to this website, like, what is it, Twitch? Not to play video games, but to watch someone else play a video game.
Yeah.
That just seems beyond me.
Yeah.
Why? And they'll like, ooh, this guy's really good. Let's watch him play video games. And they'll listen to him. He's talking and communicating while he's playing a video game. And how strange.
Well, and not just building a crowd. There are pros that are going off and playing these tournaments and getting endorsed. And I mean, it's, and more power to them, more power to people that can generate stuff like that. It's just, my age really starts to show when I try to get interested in things like that.
Right.
So I've been trying to figure out, like, because there seems like, and maybe somebody's already figured it out, but like, combine these two online things. Like people really get into watching video games, people playing video games, and people get into like fantasy sports and they participate in that online. If you could come up with like some way of making like video game watching things a fantasy sport, where okay, I'm gonna pick this, I'm gonna draft this player who's really good at Metal Gear, or whatever the game is, and I'm going to draft this one. This one's good at Red Dead Redemption. I'm putting together my great fantasy team. They're just going to go at it. They'll put together their fantasy gamer team,
right?
And like make bets on that. I feel like there's a way to do that. I just don't know it well enough to make
something.
It.
Yeah, take it to Vegas.
That's my idea. If anybody takes
it's
it,
documented now.
I'm gonna.
We've got it. Yep. We've got it recorded for posterity. We all know Matt invented that years ago. Well, you can always hope on that too. real litigious society these days. Just maybe you'll make your money just suing the shit out of somebody who comes up with that idea.
The American dream.
So speaking of like all of these just like advances in technology, I know there's been a lot of that in the music industry as well. Like, how does that affect you? Is there anything that you found to be useful or things that you're just like, I can't stand this?
You know, there's two aspects of it, because you've got the making of the music and the consuming of the music. The making of the music, it changed the landscape, I think, in a lot of positive ways, because it allowed people that record really quite good recordings with a little bit of knowledge and experience in a world where it was very expensive to record when we first started.
Right.
The other side of that is everybody in my apartment building is a musician.
Right. Yeah.
And not necessarily deservingly so.
Right.
But, you know, that's one of those things too, to where we always have the right to turn it off and switch to the next thing, right? But there's so much of it. It's like, you know, my way I used to learn about new music while I was DJing was I knew certain record labels. I liked the artwork on the vinyl, or they had a cool name, or they were in a cool section of a new genre that was taking off. It all made sense to me. The way people are getting turned on to music now, I wonder, okay, I see how you get turned on to music. How do you get turned on to good music?
Right.
Or something progressive or something cutting edge?
Right.
There's not a platform for that really.
Right.
Other than the stage. And the stage is quite limiting. Why? Because even if you're doing a residency in New York City, you know, yeah, there's a lot of people, but you're talking about a big jaded city that isn't necessarily, you know, it depends on where you're playing your opportunities. It's how do you make a name for yourself, you know, outside of publicity stunts. You know, I guess the viral video is the tool for that nowadays. But really and truly, it's like I don't know. I only get turned on by new music a few of the traditional pathways, which is mostly word of mouth.
Yeah.
You know, I'll hear somebody talk about something else they like or whatever. But so there's that side of it, the making of the music, which you can do relatively inexpensively now with a little bit of knowledge. And we were already kind of do-it-yourselfers back when you were spending money in the studios and stuff and learning it. So we really adapted well to that, to the advancement. The other side of that is, you know, there is a huge pool of talent, not all so good.
Right.
No real difference there. It was the same thing in the old days. The difference was how listenable the demos were.
Yeah.
The demos, if you were recording on a 4-track, you were trying out a band, you want to see if you had some songs, man, you had to go spend some money if you wanted to make something that was pretty listenable.
Right.
You know, now you can make something pretty listenable as far as the quality of it, but so it's easier to get in the door or whatever. But I guess in the old days, if you were getting your recordings paid for, it's because you earned it.
Right.
Somebody saw you and decided they would spend money on recording you. Right. Now, most anybody can afford to record themselves at some level decently, whether they choose to do that or not. But and then there's the consumption side of the music, which really it's just in the favor of the consumer.
Yep.
It just is.
Yep.
Still is. It's better. Some of the people in our demographic, you know, most of my fans have bought my music I don't know how many times. Yeah. They bought it on cassette, they bought it on CD, they bought it on vinyl, and they probably did those formats 2 or 3 times each. Unless they held on, if they're able to get a hold of some vinyl and take care of it. But CDs,
yeah,
you know, I know it's just on and on and on, then the download files and all this kind of thing. But really and truly, the medium is terrible. I think for me, I would have liked to have seen it back when Metallica sued Napster. I was hoping that the record industry would push towards a surround sound format similar to DVD, 7:1 or 5.1, and go that direction, so that surround sound would have become the industry standard in cars. If that would have happened, the pirating of music would not have taken place so quickly. Yeah. And we would have also been able to play with all these new production techniques to where the kick drum gets kicked in the top right left-hand corner and goes across to the rear right-hand corner, you know, and you've got all these different spatial effects that you can do, and music could have really taken a cool turn. Plus, just that format would have been a lot harder to download at the time, because the deal with MP3s, I always thought MP3s were just kind of funny because they're low resolution, kind of like, here, have a taste of a song. If you like it, buy the CD. That would have been great if it stayed like that, because MP3 sound like shit if you ask me.
Yeah.
But I just, I definitely wish it could have gone another way. I think we are seeing it come back around to where there is a generation or two that likes to buy physical copies just for the sake of having them, even if they're using the download also. But it's it's one of these things that, once again, just like the cars and everything else we were talking about, it's kind of what you make of it.
Right.
It's kind of what you make of it. So you just push on. Back in the day when I would throw T-shirts out in the crowd and sell them for dirt cheap, was because we were selling CDs.
Right.
Now I don't give as many T-shirts away.
Yeah, because that's a moneymaker now.
Because that's the merchandise that we sell.
Yep.
We are hoping that you will listen to our music in order to buy our T-shirts.
Yeah. Yep. Purchase merch.
It just keep it sustainable.
Then that's backwards from what it used to be. It's really, very different.
Well, you used to record an album so that you could do a tour to support the sales of that album. Now you record an album so you have a reason to do another tour.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of fucked up. I mean, I like the fact that it kind of leveled the playing field for a lot of people. We've talked before about how many times, we'll never know how many times an executive made a decision that controlled music that we're never going to get to hear, or, something got tossed out the window that could have been really great, but they didn't have the ear for it. But we've also lost the ear, from the A&R guy and the people who did, know music and people who could recognize, had that ear for it, for good music. And now that's all
that had a talent for feeling the next thing.
Right. And now it's all controlled by an algorithm of popularity.
And I do believe that's one of the reasons. I do believe you really hit on something. I think it's one of the reasons why we're not really hearing the next thing.
Yep.
We haven't had an exciting new genre explosion since crunk rap, probably, or whatever the last big thing was.
Right.
And that's sad, because at times there were 3 or 4 things going on at any given time.
Yep.
Grunge and industrial were taking place at the same time.
Yeah. Right? And I remember, man, that was an exciting time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You get the mixes right. You get the right elements there. You get somebody that is controversial as president. You have the right type of drugs readily available.
Right.
You have decent fashion. You have a way of communicating it and spreading the word. And you just have to have a few of those things in place for it to be a music revolution, And I think the late 60s were, and I think, a couple times in the 60s. And I think we saw that with disco and punk and metal and rap and gangster rap, and all the way up through the night. Each decade there are 2 or 3 good explosions, and I don't think we've really seen anything since 2000.
No, and it's like they'll try to sell you on some aspects, like, I don't know, it's like classifying things like dubstep, and it's like, and don't get me wrong, I like dubstep, but it's still just EDM, and it's EDM with just different, with just different frequencies and different samples.
Right.
Well, the thing about like dubstep's a good example too, because you know what? It's kind of like most instrumentals are.
Right.
Why do I want to buy a partially finished song?
Right. Yeah.
Because the only thing I like in dubstep are the breaks. Are you really trying to sell me the other crap that comes before it?
Right. Yeah.
Because the only reason why the drop sounds so good is because it was crap playing right before it.
That's a good point. Yep. Very good point. Yep. Yeah, I'm a sucker for lyrics. I gotta have. I like having somebody sing
and meaning. Yeah.
Give me some good sing along pirate music, or even if it means nothing, just mean it.
Right.
Right.
Just mean it.
Yeah.
At least let it. It needs to. I don't know. I need to feel it in some way. I guess, it doesn't necessarily have to have a profound depth to what it's saying, but just,
Yeah. Well, I think some of the best music is like a Tootsie Roll Pop. It's like it's sweet on the outside, and then everybody just wants if the sweeter it is, the harder they want to bite to get to that evil on the middle.
Oh, right.
I've always thought the best songs were really catchy, hooky songs that just you unloaded a enormous amount of evil on somebody in the most pop bubblegum way that you possibly can. And, I mean, it's why I think the Ramones had it down real good. Just turn the
they
evil
did.
up.
They had a science.
Yeah, just turn the evil up a little bit more, But really and truly, I don't care what kind of music it is. My theory has always been: you take the rock knob and you turn it all the way up.
Yeah.
You take the suck knob and you turn it all the way down. That to me is good music.
Right on. Yeah.
Unfortunately, people get those two knobs confused quite a bit.
Sure they do. Yeah, it's like one of the worst things I hate is like having somebody give me a track to listen to, and it's like, okay, just wait for it. Just wait for it.
Right.
You're a minute 18 into the song, and it's like, no, I don't want to wait for it. I want it to happen when I turn it on. I want to, when I turn it on, I want to turn my head and say, "Ooh, what the fuck is that? That sounds really good."
Right, and that doesn't mean it can't change direction on you, or
Well, that might be the next thing in music is the wait for it genre of like wait for it. It never happened.
Right.
No, that's right.
Look at how long you waited.
It never will either.
Like I like a slow burn sometimes, like something that just you could feel it like building and
sure.
And when you finally get there, you're just ready to explode with it, and then it bam hits you.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah,
I love a slow burn. I also like what I call the quiet before the storm, like the 9-Inch Nails, the Simple Minds approach to where you get everything really nice and slow and pretty, and then you just turn everything up and come in on a drop of a dime. And I think that that some of the best music is like that.
Yeah.
If you get it really, really quiet, it always sounds louder when it comes back in.
What were some of the first ones for you before you started even playing music? What do you think were some examples of that for you? You said, yeah, that makes me want to do that.
Oh, well, the first would have been, I think, probably early on hearing like AC/DC, as far as like something that just made my hair stand up on my neck.
Right.
The first thing that probably interested me was probably like Devo and B-52, where I was like, ooh, that doesn't sound like anybody else.
Right.
And still to this day, those two bands, to me, nobody sounds like them. Can't sound like them.
Yeah.
And that to me is really awesome. The next thing I would have thought about movement-wise, other than punk rock, I really love the energy and the lifestyle of just not giving a fuck. What came to me after that was I was always looking for the next punk rock.
Right.
To me, a lot of the skaters and stuff back in the day went the route of thrash metal or thrash punk that turned into whatever, hardcore, or in some cases it turned into metal.
Right. You got like Suey and Danzig. And,
right.
Yeah.
And to me, the next punk rock, even though I really liked metal and liked thrash hardcore, they were more just kind of extensions of what was going on. And some metal was a little too, I loved what it was doing, but it was hard for me to buy into the lyrics or the themes of some of those songs and stuff. To me, the next punk rock was rap, because rap was about what was going on in neighborhoods. It was about what was going on in politics. It was very socially interactive music that also captivated you with the beat. And I've always been a big fan of music with a beat. So rap really, really kind of made me start thinking about this might be something I'd like to do. Never really thought about being a rapper, how I would apply it, because the only white rappers that had even impressed me at the time really was the Beastie Boys. And I kind of just felt like they had their own thing. And you probably, if you didn't have that Northeast accent, you probably wouldn't be able to pull it off.
Right.
And production value, to pull off the production value of those types of songs at that time, you couldn't do unless you had a big time record deal. And it really just wasn't my approach. When Ministry came along and asked me to put together a band to open for them, it was really more just, it wasn't, hey, I want to sound like this or I want to be that. It was that this dude gave me an opportunity to do something that I would never be asked to do again.
Yeah.
And who turns that down?
Right.
You're right.
So before he could finish the sentence, I said, yes, I'd never played or been in a band in my life.
Really?
So I called up some of my buddies and we borrowed instruments for the first set of Ministry shows. We had 6 rehearsals, wrote 6 songs, and played to like 5,000 people that first week touring with Ministry. And then then we had to give the instruments back to the people we borrowed them from. We were off for a year until Ministry put out another record and was going to tour again. We got asked to do the Ministry tour again.
Huh.
I'm like, all right. Well, and also what was going on was I did the Beer Sears and Queers recording. It was like, okay, this guy believes in me enough to do this. And that was a whole other fiasco. But anyway, it was really just the dare of like, you need to put together a band, because I was trying to book a band to open up for Ministry. And I was like, man, I'm having a hard time finding a band that I think is worthy for you guys. He's like, no, don't find a band. Put together a band to open up for us. And I was like, oh, I can do that.
Huh.
So what came from that was when we got back together after a year and did those other shows with the Cox or Ministry, I forget which came next, but they were all kind of within those 2 years, pretty close to each other. We borrowed instruments again, bought some instruments. After those shows, at that case, there was 2 of the venues too that Al had to put deposits on the venues because the last time we played there, we'd caused some damages.
Yeah.
So Al insisted that we played, and we did play. And so after those few gigs, I was like, man, I want to do this. So I told the band, I was like, man, I want to keep doing this. Who wants to do it? Most of the band stuck with me. Changed. That was like the first staffing change or member change or whatever.
Right.
And then we had a club here in town, a guy that ran another club that I promoted for and DJ'd at for years. And I told him, I said, look, man, give me a Friday night and we'll come in and headline. You keep all the door. And if we do well enough, then we enter as a headlining act. I go, and if it's not good, we'll just come up the ranks like everybody else and start opening up for whatever shows you'll give us.
Oh.
Well, we packed the place out. We paid 2 months of the rent for the guy on that show, which I didn't even know he was behind on his rent, and became favorites there.
Right on.
So we instantly propelled ourselves into headlining. But this was kind of a natural course of events for us because, like I said before, really putting together the band was more of a joke or a dare or a challenge.
Right.
But before we even had rehearsals, we rehearsed in a storage unit, and we were like getting ready to rehearse. I was like, what are we going to rehearse, man? We haven't even made T-shirts yet.
Right.
We need to make T-shirts before we write any songs. So we printed up our first batch of Skatenigs T-shirts and spray painted our name all around town. And so it was just all these, like, when we first got noticed, our first few write-ups, other than the Ministry shows, were write-ups we did on ourselves. And we would go to the Austin Chronicle and slip them under the door when it was time to go to print with some fake name on it of one of the guys we knew that wrote for them. So, and then later on, 30 years later, when I was talking about this last year on Facebook, one of the guys comes on and goes, yeah, I got a paycheck for that. I was wondering where the fuck that came from. So nothing's been real conventional with Skatenigs, you know, but it's been a blast. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And I think
that's pretty awesome.
You know, the way we think about things it is that bass-ackwards way of like, it's a product, you know, so it's like cart before the horse, my ass. It's like, this is the way we do it naturally. Yeah. You
that's
know,
kind of funny.
Roll that bitch down a hill.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, we printed up T-shirts for the podcast before we actually had an episode. I'm pretty sure.
Awesome. you understand.
Yeah.
It's important, you know. It's important.
It makes it tangible in some ways.
Well, it does. It makes it real.
Yep, legitimizes it.
You know, it makes it real.
And it's you know, it's true. I think too that we're older and we come from that generation where it's like, you know, what did you do? You fly your parking lots, you slap stickers around, you know, you get things going and word of mouth. And now it's just like you're looking at advertising and things on Facebook, and it's like, while it can really be beneficial and really help you, you're looking at that thing. It's like, pay $25 to promote your thing to go to, you know, 5,000 more viewers. Right. And you're just like, a little part of you just dies when you think about how, you know.
Yeah, if I had the nuts, I'd much rather jump off a building with all the fucking news cameras there with a parachute that says Skatenigs Live,
right.
You know, whatever the date may be, or just, you know, it's like, yeah, there's just a lot more entertainment value in all that.
Yeah.
We were interviewing publicists one time. We had like the Michael Jackson's publicist, Fleetwood Mac's publicist. The other publicist was the one that had promoted that show Dallas.
Oh, yeah.
When they were Who Shot JR.
Oh, really?
And they were telling us about when they had the person on the flagpole in Dallas that climbed up it and wouldn't come down until they told him who shot JR. That publicity company paid that guy to do that.
Wow.
Really?
I was sold on this guy. I wanted to hire him, and I got outvoted in the van. I was like, I still feel it was like one of our biggest mistakes ever. That's the guy I want.
Yeah.
You know, that's the guy I want. I want the guy that's going to come in there and just completely welcome me to go do an unplugged show at some record store and fake my death.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, that's the good shit.
Exactly. Guerrilla infiltration, man. That's what you want. So it gets attention. Wow. Oh, that's hilarious, doing your own write-ups.
That's a little surprising. I never knew that was like a PR stunt that was, you know.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was sold. I was like, man, my vote was, anybody could have come up and told me who they were, and my vote was already in.
Yeah.
I was just like, that's the kind of shit I want.
Yep. Who needs the numbers? You got a guy who's thinking outside the box there. Wow.
Right.
That's pretty crazy.
You know, they when Queens of the Stone Age was just starting to make it big, one of my friends that worked at Vice when they were really small still said, hey, man, we want to get you to do an interview with Queens of the Stone Age.
Right.
And he goes, do you have any ideas? We want it to be real exciting. And I wrote them back, and I had come up with this treatment for shooting a video where we would ride around in a cab, and unbeknownst to them, I would be taking them out, showing them around Austin. But at some point, we would pull up. I had a guy that had a music studio. We were going to change the sign on it to say checks cash. And I was going to run in there. I was going to pull my mask down over my face and go, you guys ever play Texas Hold Up? And run in there and rob the place and come out and have the taxi cab driver take us to a strip club or something and then spend all the money.
That's
you know,
awesome.
because they were giving me a budget for this thing, and they never let me do it. And I was like, man, that would have been the best interview ever.
You'll never know, man. I wonder if they would have been down. That'd be the big.
Well, you know, it's just, you just can't. Well, or that somebody tried to do that same idea in some shitty way. You know what I'm saying? Take all the good stuff out.
Right. Yeah.
I suspect after just that idea, I'm guessing you've had a few successful epic pranks that you've pulled off.
As I've said, the statute of limitations is my friend. Yeah, I have list go on. Just terribly, you know, and some bands are great to do that with. And a lot of LSD gags. That was always one of my favorites. But also sent a guy. We stayed at their house in Dallas, and a guy ends up going to court having to shave his eyebrows for his 5th DWI court appearance. Back when you could go to your 5th DWI court appearance, you know.
Right.
So lots of just debauchery for sure. Reckless abandonment is my middle name.
Nice.
Well, we're glad you survived it, man.
Absolutely.
Well, myself, and I think most people probably are that are still standing, and some that aren't. But I'm sure I've disappointed my share as well. But, you know, I've always said that is a number one. If you ever get depressed and feeling low, like you don't want to be here anymore, just remember, you know, all the damage that you can do alive.
That's true.
And I've always been at least.
There's still shit to fuck up. Yeah.
That's right. I've always been at least that selfish.
Yeah. Don't give the assholes the satisfaction of.
That's right.
So it's so pretty much just happened that Al just kind of wanted to. He was trying to infiltrate Texas anyway, and just kind of set you up on that course just to do that.
Well, no, he didn't really know he wanted to infiltrate Texas yet.
Okay.
When we met was still early. When we met was when he started developing his fascination with Texas.
I see.
Okay.
You know, and there's that whole first couple of years, all the way up to Beers, Steers, and Queers, was him falling in love with Texas and really identifying, not so much from his experience, but identifying with something that he thought was entertaining, which was, you know, just the true punk rock kind of redneckness of what was happening here at the time. You know, music was extremely fucking cool in Austin.
Yep.
And the crowds were great. And quite honestly, we had something, everybody wanted it. And he was just one of the people that really noticed it. One of Al's greatest talents is noticing other people's talent and cool shit And, he's got that DJ background as well.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's one of the things that he hones in on, and he really embraced it in so many ways, everything from the way he wanted to look to the way he wanted to sound, and the way that even Ministry changed into, Ministry went from being this real urban mechanized kind of thing to being this kind of, wild cowboy component.
Yeah. He used to, from what I understand, I don't know if it's true or not, but he supposedly won't sign any of those With Sympathy albums or anything else like that. He just doesn't want to sign.
He just did one the other day for $1,000. It was $1,000. It was $1,000 donation to one of the Chicago Blackhawks charities.
Oh, okay, for charity. Good.
Wow.
Good.
Yeah, he was doing it as promotions for his book, but it had to go to charity.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool. And I know he did at least one, which was great, because I think that was always one of the differences between Al and I, was he always wanted to bury that old history from that first album, because he just hated it so much.
Yeah.
And the
might as well embrace it.
And for me, it would have been embrace it wholeheartedly, and that just makes my middle fingers bigger.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. Everybody comes from somewhere too, and so you're not gonna. I mean, yeah, you get to that level too, you're not going to get rid of it. It's not going away.
Right. You got to, and if you get to a point where you can't, or you have to take yourself that seriously, what's the point in doing it anymore?
Yeah.
It stops being fun, at least in my mind.
Well, I think it's another sign of the time. At that point in time, you got to remember he was signed in his very early 20s to major labels, and going from Arista to Sire, you are basically going from one publicist that you've developed one bio with to a brand new chance at being something new. And when that first record, Twitch kind of failed for them. It did not sell very well.
Right.
And so he wanted to stay hard, but he wanted to take it to the next level. The next level was adding guitars and bass. So I think he quickly wanted to kick the cat litter on top of that one and move on. But to me, it was like, it's just part of that growth, and it's an evolving bio. But for those bio shifts back then were a big deal, because that same bio that you used on one record wasn't going to be changed till a couple of years later on the next record. Right. And short of whatever press you're doing, people still had that same impression of you, unless you made the front pages doing something else.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can get pigeonholed.
So it was really kind of a different time. You couldn't really change that landscape, the look of that landscape, so quickly and easily as you can now.
Right.
And maybe some of that is youth too, and so he's getting a little older, and I can imagine if I were in my 20s, I'd probably be more touchy about it than I am in my 40s.
Well, and the thing is too, when you're making a shift to be punk rock, and you've kind of known for being an asshole, is that you can't. It's hard to embrace things publicly, right? When you're trying to make a clear statement. Here we can see Henry Rollins hug a puppy and then watch him play a hardcore show, and everybody can understand it in this day and age. Back then, you didn't want that photograph of hugging the puppy coming up, because it was, it just wasn't
right. You don't want to be Glenn Danzig buying kitty litter.
Right.
And God forbid you were attached to something that gave you money for a branding or anything.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. It is odd that you don't have to worry about that as much anymore. Well, the thing is too, is just that what defines rock stars these days just isn't the same. Yeah.
Well, to me, the most punk rock thing you can do is sell out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what you're trying to do in the first place, is sell records. Yeah. I mean, that's I never understood that. Just especially when the music doesn't change, music keeps getting better and keeps improving, and all of a sudden somebody's making more money, and people had a problem with them in the 90s just for making more money. Right. Well, when you're selling music of angst, there's certain expectations, and they're usually very narrow and specific. Whereas, people, when you get to that idea that, oh, this song was written about me or for me, those kind of things. Right. I've never written a song about anybody or for anybody. Right. That may just be me, but it was like there was never that concept of this single vision. And, it's like it's just what's on your mind at the time. And, to sit there and try to
defend or develop and defend a persona around it. It's like, you kind of limit yourself to what your future can be like.
Yeah, and it's weird that fans kind of think that that's what's going on. But when you step outside of it, how much weirder is it to think that an artist might be sitting there going, what do my fans want to see? What do they want me to write a song about? Because nobody wants that shit either.
Right.
It's ridiculous. You want it to come from that person and be, just a part of that person and their art. You don't want them to.
Right.
It's not like you're commissioning.
I mean, I hope you find something in my music to connect with.
Sure.
But don't confuse that with me trying to write music to connect with you.
Right.
Yep.
Because it becomes artificial the moment you start doing that.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and to me, the songs really write themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The best songs write themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really in control of it. It's like it really just kind of takes place and comes together, and it says one thing or it says a bunch of things or it doesn't say anything, but it says it loudly and clearly.
It's like that, oh my God, it loathsome websites out there, songmeanings.com. You get into that. Some of those are just hilarious. I think one of my favorite ones I ever read on there was somebody to write up on Faith No More doing Cuckoo for Caca. And they were like, oh, this song is all about, it's about drug addiction and it's about, it's cold and it's smooth, it's a hard shade of white, it's about cocaine and it's about this, that, and wrote this huge diatribe of this, it mimics my life exactly. One guy had like a 2-sentence answer. He said, nope, it's about licking toilet seats. and he's right. That's exactly what the song's about. Yeah. Well, people who have a toilet seat licking fetish. Just like right on.
I think that is one of the, we can make fun of that stuff, but at the same time, that's one of the awesome things is people are free to have their own interpretation of what something means. And that's being able to, have that weird connection with people. You're connecting with someone and you're not even trying to in some ways. Does that make sense? But it's kind of fun.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the thing is, too, is that you hope to have some kind of meaningful content, even if it's not even the content itself that's meaningful. It's the delivery or it's that I need to make a ridiculous statement or whatever. And you do it wholeheartedly with meaning. But at the same time, I'm not trying to write messages for an agenda. It's like I'll take politics, for example. I don't think music should really be that politically directed.
Mm-hmm.
It can surely be politically charged and fueled, but I think when you start to tell people how to think, you're really assuming that your audience can't think for themselves.
Right.
So by saying something ridiculous or something that doesn't make sense, or even more so, something offensive, a lot of times I'm just poking the bear, hoping to get somebody to think or start the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really give a shit one way or another, which way somebody thinks. Are they thinking about it?
Yeah.
And if so, I don't care if it's a ridiculous thought. Is it your thought?
Well, that's what's kind of scary is how many of us have gotten into this state where we stopped thinking for ourselves and we just buy whatever, whoever it is that we've decided that we're going to take our information from. That's who we're going to trust, and anybody else is a liar.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That terrifies me that we've gotten to that place, and I couldn't possibly go look at any alternative points of view because I might be challenged in some way. Good. I want to be challenged.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what I was going to say. Most of those people anyway, in a lot of those situations, they've got their minds made up regardless. And, they can end up hurting you as well. I mean, because you're either just preaching to the choir or else you're alienating people. But, I never saw anybody with any like hardcore political ways of thinking ever just hear a song and say, you know what? Never thought about it that way. Completely changed my mind.
Right.
It doesn't fucking work. Doesn't work.
Or they'll bend over backwards to change the meaning to suit their own agenda.
Right. Yep.
A great example, Born in the USA. You ever listen to that song? Actually listen to the lyrics?
Yeah.
Right. And we'll play it at every political rally. Mm-hmm. And it's Bruce Springsteen talking about what a fucked up country this is.
Right. Yep.
Born, and then people are just cheering and chanting along with it. We'll bend it to our own agenda.
Well, I can also imagine too the same guy that was driving around with his windows rolled down, screaming "Let's lynch the landlord," is now probably trying to evict the tenant.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Prime example. Yep. That's definitely going on. That's for sure. I'm feeling that myself. Sucks to be an aging punk and responsible and have kids and shit like that, you know. But, you know, I mean, it's also good, I think, to boost up the marginalized sometimes. You know, you've got to do that. And, you know, music can save a lot of people, too, just with having an outlet. Politics is, politics is different from society, though, you know, and can be.
Well, you know, responsibility is getting together with the family and deciding at the end of the week for half a day what exactly we can all fuck off.
Right.
You know, it's not that random thought of fucking this off and fucking that off and spontaneous, hasty decisions. They're just a lot more devastating now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, potentially scary. Didn't seem like, yeah. Well, of course, maybe my parents just held their shit together a lot better. But yeah, seems like a lot more people are living paycheck to paycheck. It's just,
yeah, I think they are.
Well, when you're in a trap of living paycheck to paycheck, the idea of overturning the system lessens with time, because even though the thought might be just as intense, the reality of overturning the system and starting a revolution has become more and more distant.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one thing. That's the one thing too I see about you know, political posts. And one thing I was thinking about, I'm seeing a whole lot more of this. Man, you know, there's no such thing as a Democrat or Republican. You're all just feeding into the system, and it's like, yeah, but you know, we're kind of stuck with it right now in a lot of ways. We got to make something work, and there's plenty of countries all over the world that have systems that are working okay for people.
Right.
I don't think it's a bad idea to have a system, you know, entirely.
Right. It's kind of like we're in a paddle boat right now, and we know we don't want to keep going in the direction that we're going.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we got one person trying to, so do we need to, you know, paddle a little harder on the right or the left? Well, I think my personal feeling is we need to paddle a little bit farther left than we're doing, because we've lost track of what the middle is right now. We're just trying to get to the middle by going left, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you know, I think too, the idea of, you know, we live in a gray world, but we have a black and white system in this country.
Yes.
So we're really nobody's truly represented except the far left and the far right. And most true problems that we need solutions for live in a gray area.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
I absolutely agree with that.
When you have countries that have multiple parties where the population feels more represented, one, the education's a lot higher. The knowledge around who serves their office and what those offices do, that knowledge is a lot better, and voter turnout's a lot better.
Yeah, we were talking to Hamish Cowan about that here a while back, and it's fascinating to me. Like we're in Australia, where it's compulsory. You have to vote. You know.
Yeah.
Right.
I wouldn't mind seeing that here at all. I mean, you know, it's kind of funny you talked about the what they call the donkey vote, which is essentially, you know, you get a bunch of people who just go in there and like draw a dick on the ballot. You know,
right.
He's like, we don't really know how many of those there are. He's like, well, there's a lot. And I'm sure you get that too. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see just what would happen if you were just required to in this country, you know?
Well, yeah, you know, I think, I think the best way to encourage it is if we had more parties, it would incentivize people to want to participate. Sure. People don't feel represented now. And they're, you know, if I can't have my way, I don't want to even tell you what my way is, which is some babyish bullshit, right? But it's kind of, you know, it's kind of where we're at. It's kind of how we ended up with the president we have now. And everybody really, you know, if you were a Democrat at all, people view it as this horrible thing. To me, it was, you know, it's two evils running against each other, and the more evil one won.
Right.
And I think that's a good thing, because if he can really do some damage, maybe people will pay more attention and care a little bit more.
Yeah.
Or he'll start World War III. You don't know.
Either way.
Or he'll start World War III. You know, any of them are capable of that. I think.
That's true.
But you know, we're in a predicament that has come by lack of choice, though. You know, the options that we are given, we're not interested in.
Yeah.
So that's what we've gotten as a result. And we were talking about middle class earlier. Well, middle class is the best way to keep people quiet in.
Right.
Because somebody that's backed in a corner and is fucking starving and cold is a dangerous motherfucker.
That's right.
Yep.
And none of the fat, comfortable cats want to deal with that. So you give us just enough to get by, not enough to struggle. To get out and
or struggle a little bit, but you can always blame that on somebody else.
Right. Well, that's that light at the, you know, that's that glimmer of hope at the end of the day. Just enough to continue complacency.
Right.
Hey, give us a tax break so we can let that trickle right down to you.
Yeah.
You'll be in a better place, I promise.
Or just distract us with hot button issues that have nothing
Right.
to do with actually structuring our society anyway that's going to be beneficial to anybody. Just shit that makes people angry and shit where they want to control other people, and that happens on both sides. Absolutely. Funny how that works.
Or get us to worry about whether our cars have a camera for backing up.
Right. Yep. Distractions. Americans love our distractions, man. By the way, are you still running for a write-in candidate for 2020, Phildo 2020?
We're not sure the office I'm going to run for. Basically, the whole idea with Phildo 2020 wasn't just to fill my ego or to sell more T-shirts. It really was about trying to design a new type of GoFundMe.
Okay.
Because I think GoFundMe has played out too much, and the idea of a super PAC to where I could go around the country making political announcements in order to finance a tax-free GoFundMe, right. It just seems real appealing. So right. if we can get the super PAC through, then yes, we're going to continue it on, and we will run for something, if for no other reason, just to keep T-shirt prices down.
There you go. You go to that ULC, universallifechurch.com, get yourself an ordainment. You can get that for like $5. Give you some tax-free status. I don't know, man. That spooks me.
I had an ordainment about 10 years ago, and like I would say, once again, the statute of limitations is my friend.
Yeah. Yeah, I married a couple under an ordainment, a couple of friends a long time ago. It did not turn out well. A good thing, though.
Yeah, try doing a Dr. Seuss themed wedding with a trailer park full of meth addicts.
Yeah, I may have been there. I'm not sure. I was a wedding reception DJ and wedding DJ for years. I have seen some things that weren't far off from that. It was scary. Right. The tables were decorated with shotgun shells.
Yep.
Yeah.
Missouri.
The groom. I remember the groom neglected to take his dip of skull out from his lip before saying I do.
Oh, Christ.
That's
somebody that stands up for what they believe in right there.
Stand by your man.
Yep.
Oh, that's rough.
It was a special occasion.
Poor woman.
Yeah.
Tasty. Oh, speaking of weddings and whatnot.
Speaking of, yes.
Didn't know you want to make the announcement, but you got engaged recently, right?
I did get engaged.
Yeah, congratulations, man.
Well, thank you.
Good.
Yeah, we don't have a date yet, but we will let that be known when we do.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing those pics. She seems like a good gal. I from your Facebook posts and whatnot, but
yeah,
real supportive of you.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah.
Happy for you. Always happy to see people happy. Good deal.
Partner, it's nice having a partner in crime, and I mean every word of that.
How's the statute of limitations on that?
I'm going to have to get back with you in about 8 years on that.
Well, we'll call you back for that podcast episode.
Right on.
Where are they now?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we might catch you wherever you're part of the woods. If you get a late night phone call, we might need you to put us up for a couple of days.
No problem. I got a pretty big house. My kids are fleeing too, so I got some empty rooms. You're more than welcome.
Yep.
If you're coming through Missouri, that's where we are anyway. Yep.
Just let us know.
Well, that's outlaw country right there.
Yeah,
absolutely, man. I'm Kansas City. We're Jesse James.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got him just north of here. Well, he actually has a Columbia story too, where John's at.
Yeah. The bar that he was shot at too was here at one of our restaurants, I think, at the Grand Cru. I just found that out a couple of years ago.
We need to come play, and we always play St. Louis, but we've never really played much more in Missouri, other than I guess Kansas City. I don't think we've ever played Columbia.
Columbia is fun. It's college town, USA. I mean, it's right smack in the middle of the state between the two. But you got the university here, and we got like 6 or 7 colleges. So we got the kids who are thirsty for shows.
Right. Yeah, secondary markets a lot of times are the best, or at least they used to be.
Oh yeah, for those kinds of shows, John and I have talked about that a lot. Just we spent a lot of our younger years in Springfield, Missouri, which is also a college town, but it's a it's much smaller market, and they, when they got shows,
Oh yeah,
man, they went crazy.
Yep.
It was fun.
Kids are starved for that. Well, especially there, it's like also it's a college town, but it's also like the Assembly of God headquarters is in Springfield, so I call it Little Salt Lake. Like that. Yeah, man, Missouri'd love to have you. I'd love to have you here for a show. That'd be awesome. The Blue Note is a really good venue, historic. Johnny Cash played there. Reverend Horton Eat plays there a lot.
It's good enough for Johnny Cash. It's good enough for the Skatenigs.
There you go.
Right on.
I'm pretty sure he used to say the same thing.
I don't know. The Skatenigs ever played here?
Did he cover one of your songs? I know when he was doing all those other covers. That's probably like a hidden gem.
Recordings. Yeah,
that would have been. Yeah, there's probably one tucked off in a
probably
tape somewhere.
I wouldn't, stranger things definitely happen.
That'll be my next piece of fake news that I put out on there.
That would be a good one. Save that for like for April Fool's Day. Thanks,
all right. Well, we don't want to chew up a whole bunch of your Friday night.
No problem, man. It's been a pleasure.
Man, we really appreciate you coming. I had a blast. I'm pretty sure Jon did too.
I had a great time.
Well, I appreciate it. Sorry it took so long to get this to happen. I've got like 3 releases coming up this next year, and as those kind of come out, we can revisit some of this.
Yeah, man.
Do some play-by-play. One is going to be the Chemical Imbalance 30th anniversary remixed release record,
nice.
Which is going to be called Making Life Livable.
Cool.
And I've got 2 EPs that are come out of new stuff. One of the EPs is called The End of the Beginning.
Okay.
And it is going to be all the loose ends that were left over throughout the years of song pieces that I really liked that I didn't finish yet, or older songs I do a new version of, or songs that just never made it to fruition yet. And then the next EP is going to be called The Beginning of the End, and that'll be all from scratch, brand new.
Oh, far out.
Oh, man.
I was just going to say, one of the things we're doing is Skatenigs are doing our version of Beer, Steers, and Queers, which is more guitar heavy. And Jorgensen is going to play a spaghetti Western lead on it. So it should be really cool. We're really looking forward to that. We're doing a newer version of Fight the Suckers.
Right on.
And it's kind of a anti-racism 2020 campaign. And it's going to be like a bombastic version of that song. A couple other songs that were in the works. One of them was a Cox song that Jello Biafra and Billy Gibbons played on called Dead End Streets.
Oh, that's a combo right there.
And I'm doing a newer version of that. And it was a song that was a Skatenigs song to start with.
Right.
And then when Jello wanted to sing it, I was like, well, how do you turn down Jello Biafra wanted to sing your song? So he sang it, but he didn't do it the way I wanted to do it. And the song didn't sound the way I wanted it to.
Yeah.
It was cool and it made a great Cox song, but I want to do the original Skatenigs version of it. And I think everybody's really going to dig that. I think that's going to be one of the coolest things on this EP. And then we're also doing another song. It's like a 15-minute, the guided meditation to murder. Basically just turn off, tune out, and let me talk you into killing someone.
Right on.
Yes.
Great. All right. Looking forward to all that.
Yeah. So you okay with us like sharing all of that's coming up?
Sure.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure none of that was like too private, because I think people would like to hear that's coming up, man.
I think that's totally fine.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. Well,
cool, man. Thank you,
thanks
guys.
a lot. You've been listening to Undetermined, the podcast with Phildo, Owen. Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right, guys.